This is the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the first chapter. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went out throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. And this is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And you may be seated. So about a month ago, my brother-in-law David and I took a road trip out to Berkeley, California. And driving to California has always been on my list of things to do. And we had a great reason to drive out there because my brother-in-law David got a job there working in Berkeley, and so he needed to get his car out to California. So I gladly volunteered to join him on the trip, and we had an amazing time. It should be illegal, all of the fun that we had on this trip. It was so incredibly fun. But the trip almost ended about 3 hours in when we were driving just past Bismarck. And just past Bismarck is New Salem, North Dakota. And do you all know what's in New Salem, North Dakota? Salem Sioux, right. The big, giant Holstein cow statue that sits up on a hill. It overlooks New Salem, North Dakota, and keeps watch on all the cars going down the freeway on I-94. Now, I tend to approach life with a great sense of urgency, and we've got to keep on moving. We've got a schedule to got to keep pushing forward. That's kind of the way I live life. And we needed to make Idaho Falls by 9 o'clock, and by God, we were going to make Idaho Falls by 9 o'clock. Now, David has a little different approach. He likes to stop along the way. So he saw Salem Sioux, never been there before, and so he wanted to stop and see this giant Holstein cow up on Salem Sioux Hill. So I'm driving the car, and I reluctantly agree, and we pull off, and we make our way to the service road, which brings you up to Salem Sioux. And I actually have a picture of this giant cow, just to give you an image in your mind. So if we could, hopefully this will work. There it is. This is the summer shot. So we're making our way up, and we see this cow. It's getting bigger and bigger in our front windshield. And first, though, my brother-in-law is also a pastor, so being good Lutheran pastors, we have to make our donation because they ask you to make a donation to help with the maintenance. So here's me making a donation, so I can prove to you that I donated before I went up. And I'm in a hurry, so we get back in the car, and I'm driving up the little service road there, and it's pretty icy out. It's a gravel road, but it's glazed over with a bunch of ice. And so then you get to the part where it's a very steep hill. And I actually have a satellite image for you as well, so if we could take a look at that now. There's the service road, and you can see where the Ford Mustang car is there. Now, we were not driving a Ford Mustang car. That's my dream car. Right about that point is where the road gets really, really steep. And we were in just a small little hatchback car with front-wheel drive, and I'm driving up the hill, and all of a sudden the car isn't going anywhere, and the front end is kind of going back and forth like this, and then we start to slide backwards. And I can see in the paper the next day 2 Lutheran pastors go over the side of the small cliff at Salem Sioux Hill. They're in the hospital now. They were attempting a summit of the hill, but didn't quite make it. Not really a noble headline to have. So I'm trying to work this car up the hill, and it's not going anywhere. And finally, David turns to me and says, "Stop! Just stop, Aaron. Just stop what you're doing." "No, David, I got this. I can do this." "No, Aaron, stop. Just stop." "Okay, I'll stop." So I was able to get the car stopped. I pulled the emergency brake, and then we get out of the car, and again, I'm on a schedule, and so I'm immediately in fix-it mode trying to figure this thing out. And we've got to get to Idaho Falls by 9 o'clock. And I'm immediately trying to figure out what to do. And David says, "Oh, we got to go take our selfie." "What? We're not going to take a selfie with Salem Sioux right now because we got to get our car turned around and get moving." And so I reluctantly agree. David says, "No, we made it this far. Let's just stop. Let's stop and get our selfie." So we have a picture of that as well. So there we are. You can see in my eyes, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. I want to keep on moving. And you want us to stop. So you can go back to the black at the very beginning. That would be great. I don't want to bother you with my selfie there during my sermon. So we get our selfie, and then we go back to the car. And I say, "David, you drive, because I don't want to be responsible for putting your car over the cliff." And I stay outside of the car as well. I don't know why I thought about that, but I just thought, I'm going to be out here safe. Somebody's got to call 911, right? So David gets in the car, and this was the most amazing miracle you ever saw in your life. David starts backing down, and it was like the hand of God reached down. We were like a Matchbox car, and that car did a perfect 180. And then I got in the car, and we were on our way. So I don't know if you've ever driven to California before, but it turns out that a road trip to California is really, really long, and you've got a lot of time to think. Later in the day, we were making our way across Montana and admiring the beautiful setting sun in the foothills, and I was thinking about our little adventure on Salem Sioux Hill. I thought about David's words to me, "Aaron, stop. Just stop." Then I thought about how I'd been living life with a great sense of unnecessary urgency. I had been living life in such a way where I was paying more attention to the details of life rather than to those more essential things in life. I was living life in such a way where I was not willing to take time out and to simply be with all of the people around me. I had been living life like it was one big race that's on a schedule, and making sure to fill all of my time so I could be as productive as possible. I then thought specifically about my last year, working 3 jobs, raising a family, finishing my doctoral degree, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Then I thought again of David's words, "Aaron, stop. Just stop." So right then and there, I decided that this trip would be a time where I would work on stopping and being in the moment. And you know, it's amazing what happens when you just allow yourself to stop and to be in the moment and to take stock of where you are in life. I had the most amazing trip with David, way too much fun. It was a time of connection with myself, time of connection with my brother-in-law, but most importantly, it was a time of connection with God and seeing God's beautiful creation, this beautiful country that we live in. Jesus in today's gospel was also a very busy man. In the first verses of Mark, right before our text for today, we get introduced to John the Baptist, that guy that wears those suits made out of camel's hair and eats locusts and tells people to get ready for the Savior. Then we see Jesus being baptized by John in the Jordan. Then Jesus goes out into the wilderness for 40 days to be tested by the devil. Then John the Baptist, a great friend of Jesus, gets arrested. Then Jesus begins his public ministry as an adult. Then Jesus calls his first disciples. Then he goes to the synagogue, that Jewish place of worship, and teaches the lesson for that day. Then he heals a man with an unclean spirit, and then we get to our verses, our little section of the gospel that we have for today. and just look at Jesus' schedule in the 11 verses that we have in our gospel for today. Jesus has just left the synagogue. When he gets to Simon's house, he heals Simon's mother-in-law. When the sun goes down, thus ending the Sabbath day, the whole city surrounds his door, and he heals people late into the night. Hundreds, perhaps even thousands of people come to be healed by Jesus. Then in the morning, while it's still very dark, he gets up and he goes to a quiet place to pray. In the midst of all of that craziness, in the midst of all of that busyness, that crazy schedule that Jesus and the disciples have, what does Jesus do? He stops. He stops and connects with God. But his disciples were not stopping. They're anxious and they want to find Jesus. And so they are going out and hunting for Jesus. They're frantic. And finally, they find Jesus, and Jesus says, "You found me. Let's go to the next place so I can share this message from God there too." And that's all just in the first few pages of Mark. Jesus is one busy guy, but he takes time out to stop, just to stop and connect with God. Jesus shows us what it looks like to stay connected to God, even in the midst of a busy schedule. Jesus knew what it was like to be pulled in many different directions at once. Jesus knew what it was like to have the demands of others constantly coming at him. He was teaching and healing people. He was leading these 12 lively young men and mentoring them into their new leadership positions. And those young men often spoke before they thought. He knew what it was like to be tired. He knew what it was like to be hungry and frustrated with the people around him. And he also knew the importance of stopping and spending regular and intentional time with God. He knew that prayer was more than just a spiritual practice. It was about maintaining a relationship with God. In the crazy pace of Jesus' life, he relied on the moments of quiet time with God where he just stopped. He was able to hear the voice of God speak into his human situation and remind him of his mission. Making space for God allowed Jesus to make space for the tasks of the world, the busy tasks of the world. Jesus also knew the difference between urgent things and essential things. We know urgent things. We're experts in those urgent things. They are the things that scream at us constantly. The crying, hungry baby, and I know this next one, the tantruming toddler, the car that's stuck on Salem Sioux Hill, figuring out how to get everybody in a busy family to the right places at the right times, taking a grandkid along with you to your appointments when the parents are busy at work, paying an unexpected medical bill, fixing the clogged drain, dealing with family crises, going to the emergency room, and cleaning that strange dog mess up off the floor. These are the urgent things in life. They will always, always be with us. But there are also the essential things as well. And these things don't scream. They whisper in our ear. Essential things are the moments when we stop what we are doing to realize that God's presence is all-encompassing, surrounding, and filling our chaotic lives. Essential things include taking time with our family or friends to have a real conversation, or maybe even stopping in the midst of what you're doing to take a selfie with Salem Sioux. Times for worship in silence are also essential things. Essential things can also include the ideas of, in the words of, thank you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I love you. I think our world would be a better place if we just stopped from time to time to say, thank you, or I'm sorry, or I forgive you, or I love you. We also learn from the gospel that serving others is an essential thing because it allows us to see beyond our own urgent needs, to see the needs of others, and that, my friends, is also an essential thing. But we often neglect the essential things because the urgent things, well, they're just so darn urgent. So do you feel as though you are caught up in the urgent things in life and you're forgetting about those essential things? Are those urgent things screaming at you so loudly that you can't hear the whisper of the essential things in life? Do you feel as though your wheels are spinning as you are going up the hill of life? And maybe you even feel like you're going backwards down that hill. Might I suggest to stop? Just stop. Take a look around. Connect with God. Connect with yourself. And you know what? God will turn you around to get you to where you need to be going. So how about we stop right now, and maybe we can take 10 seconds to connect with God. Maybe you could pray to God, or perhaps you could think about who you need to say thank you to, or I'm sorry to, or who you need to forgive, or who you need to say I love you to. So let's take 10 seconds now. I'll watch the time. So sometimes we just need to be with God and be with each other and see the miracle that life is, and maybe we could even take a selfie. Amen.